A lot of people, they get started because they see the money upside.
If you want to truly grow a real business and scale, 100% start your own practice.
I think there's no greater mission and purpose in life than to try to become the greatest versions of ourselves.
If somebody is starting a practice, really create a job for them, intention of actually bringing on team members.
Entrepreneurship is war every day, and it sucks more often than it doesn't. Welcome to another episode of the Cash Physical Therapy Headquarters podcast. We took about a week, maybe even 2 weeks off because we had our live event where we had well over 100 cash physical therapists fly in from all over the country to come hang out with Ben and I in person to learn what's working right now to grow and scale cash practices, because so much has changed in 2024 that practice owners need to be aware of in order to be relevant and in order to remain competitive and keep growing in 2025, especially if you're doing social media advertising. So we're back and we're asked a lot of questions at the live event between practice owners who are relatively new in the game. They're still kind of running a side hustle, and they were weighing the options of either going all in on their practice or partnering or joining another cash practice that's out there that maybe offers a little bit more security, a little bit stronger of a foundation than the kind of beginning stages of practice ownership and entrepreneurship. And so I know, Ben, you've been facing some things at your clinic. Let's dive in. Share the story. Why did this topic feel like we had to talk about it today?
Yeah, it's been really interesting, and it's a good shift that's happening in the profession that they're tired of insurance, right? They're tired of seeing high volumes of patients, and there's more and more people starting their own practice, which is great. However, in my opinion, if somebody is starting a practice just to really create a job for themselves, what I mean by that is they have no intention of actually bringing on team members, and they just want to start a practice so they can treat how they want to, and yada yada. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. I was working 60 to 80 hours a week. It was the most stressful. I was more stressed out. I was more unhappy than I was when I was seeing 20 patients a day in an insurance model, and is the best way to put it. And we're having a lot of applicants that are coming in and stating, hey, I'm going back and forth. I'm if I want to, join your practice or if I want to do my own thing. No. And I can just tell from talking to these people, I don't know if that's starting your own practice is what's truly right for you, but I'm not going to tell that to them.
Right. You can't just say you don't have what it takes to somebody.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really interesting. And, but what people see is they see that, hey, I can charge, ProConnect is charging $200. Why wouldn't I just go do that and I can pocket all that? Right. But they don't realize that it's not really necessarily their fault. They're just not entrepreneur spirited, and they don't understand the finances and the business, which is fine. Because I didn't obviously have a huge grasp on that at the beginning either, but they see that $200, plus that we're charging and thinking, well, why would I only work for a fraction of that when I could just go do it myself?
Yeah. So
the thing is the reality is when you are doing your own thing, you don't pocket the whole $200. You should be, if you're lucky, you're paying yourself half that, right? Mm-hmm. So the best way to do the math on this is to prove my point on this is, let's say you charge $200 right out of the gate. Most people don't. Most people are $150, and it takes a year for them to come up with the money mindset to get up to $200. But let's say that you're at $200. You get to take home 50% of that, which is $100. Okay, great. You're making $100 per patient seen. But what most people think is, oh, I'm making $100 per hour. No, the most patients that I was able to personally see myself was between 20 to 25 patients per week. So if you're seeing 20 patients per week, and that's because I wasn't able to see 40 patients per week because you got to do everything else within the business. You got to do the marketing, you got to do the workshops, you got to do the rescheduling, the scheduling, the sales, the phone calls, all these things. And so really I was capped out about 20, 25 patients, and I was working 60 to 80 hours to do that. So essentially you do $200 per patient. Let's say you see 20 patients. All right. So you're making $4,000 per week, right? Sounds great. But the reality is you're only able to pay yourself half of that after taxes, after rent, after overhead, after you get EMR, all these other expenses, right? So you're making $2,000 per week. So for 20 hours worth of work of patient care, which sounds great, you're making $100 per hour. But if you're working 50 or 60 hours a week, that's what it's going to take. I was close to that 60 to 80. But let's say conservatively, you're working 20 hours of patient care, 30 hours of admin stuff, and everything else that it takes. Right. So now you're at $2,000 of take home per week divided by 50 hours. You're making $40 an hour. $40 an hour, and the equivalent of that is $83,000 salary. Yes, you are able to make more per patient, but your hourly rate is less. And this is why you shouldn't start a practice unless you truly want to grow and scale, if you're motivated by the financial aspect of it, especially if there's already a cash practice out there that allows you to treat. I could understand, like, I started my practice because I wanted to be able to treat the way that I wanted to. There was no cash practices hiring. There's tons of cash practices out there hiring now. Looking back, I may have actually not started my practice and just joined a cash-based practice, worked my way up, become a clinic director, and actually not have to take the associated risk and only have to work 40 hours versus having the stress of 50, 60, 80 hours of doing my own thing and all that comes with it. So that's my opinion on what we're seeing. And it's really interesting. And not saying this to discourage people from starting their own thing. Just make sure you really truly understand the financial aspect of it and the burden that comes with it. If you stay solo, it can be 100% worth it if you want to grow and scale and bring on a team. So, but curious your thoughts on that.
Yeah, man, I think the discussion is really like, what does it really take to be an entrepreneur, and what does it actually mean? Because like, and we're guilty of this, like in our marketing, like we're encouraging people to start their practices, and there's so many coaches that are out there that are presenting ownership and entrepreneurship like it's this easy thing, which makes sense because as marketers, we have to like try to eliminate friction to get closer to the yes. But I do think that a lot of influencers that are out there are doing people a massive disservice by not talking about the hard shit that is required to succeed. Even if you just start like a side hustle, even if you're really just being like a freelance physical therapist, which is definitely different than being an entrepreneur. Like if you're not building a team, if you're not building systems, if you're not building a self-sustaining asset, you're not an entrepreneur. You are a job owner, you are a freelancer, you're not an entrepreneur. And a lot of people, they get started because they see the money upside, but they don't see like what it actually means. Like running $1 million business does not mean that we are millionaires. Okay. Like we, like Clinical Marketer, $2 million a year business. I make more than the average person, but not nearly as much as people like think that we do. Right. And it's same with ProKinetics. Like when you're a 7-figure practice, like everyone thinks like you're a millionaire and life's great, but it takes a long time of refining your systems to get profit at a level, and the operating systems beneath you operating at a level where you actually have like time and any resemblance of like financial freedom. And a lot of people just like, they don't realize that. And not only that, but like the trials that you have to go through mentally to be able to sustain a business. Like the first couple months, like the honeymoon phase of entrepreneurship, where it's like, great, I got some patience, I have some momentum, I'm making more money. But then you realize very quickly that in order to sustain that, where you have any sort of security in what it is that you're doing, you're not only going to have to build and get really good at different skills that you're uncomfortable with doing, like sales, like marketing, like financial management, like all of these things you have to become great at. And it forces us to live in this house of mirrors where things are constantly breaking, and it's because of our own shortcomings as a person. And so it's like people see the money, but they don't realize that it's like every insecurity you have, every doubt, fear, trauma that you've experienced in your life, in order to succeed in entrepreneurship long term, you're going to have to come face to face with every single one of those and beat every single one of those, which oftentimes for more people than not means that you're going to have to get broken down as a human being. Like the version of yourself that existed before your business is going to have to die. And it sucks. It's happened so frequently that it's called no man's land in entrepreneurship, where it's like versions of yourself that are weak, that are fearful, that are doubtful, have to go through so much pain that they literally die off and are replaced with something stronger. And a lot of people are not willing to look themselves in the mirror long enough and to work on themselves to a degree to actually become the versions of themselves capable of succeeding in entrepreneurship. That's why so many practice owners are failing like left and right, because they had some initial success early on, but then they're realizing like, my God, like I am stressed out all of the time. When I'm at home, I'm not really present because I'm thinking about business, because they don't know how to think about business. They just know they're stressed out and they're winging it every single day. And so, I think influencers, gurus, ourselves included, we do the industry a little bit of a disservice, not out of malicious intent, but out of just pure marketing principles, where we make starting a business sound so much easier than it actually is. We don't do enough to talk about like what it really means to start your business and what it's actually going to take to win at this thing. Now, all that to say, entrepreneurship is the greatest game in the world, okay? I think there's no greater mission and purpose in life than to try to become the greatest versions of ourselves through the service of other people. I don't think there's any other worthier cause in the world than that. But I have learned over the years that not every person, despite having a lot of potential, not every person is built to realize that potential. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. It's just a different struggle. It's not something that it's just 40 hours a week, 50 hours. Like it's 24/7. Like when you're not, the thing too is patients are rescheduling every texting and calling at all hours of the night. You're just always constantly on. And when you're not actually physically working, like marketing or doing the phone calls or treating patients, your mind is still on 24/7. So when you're sleeping, like you just have to be on. You're always thinking about what else needs to happen. You don't have that with the 9 to 5. And I think that's where the landscape has really changed since when I started my practice versus where we're at now. There's so many cash practices out there that are hiring. And a lot of people would be, and like people would be like, well, if I don't start my own thing, then what should I do? Better off if you truly do not want to grow and scale a team and grow a practice to a real business, you're better off joining a cash practice that's already established and working your way up into a clinic director role. Like with our clinic director role, there's profit sharing, there's equity, and that's something that's really interesting. That is the clinic director, one of my clinic directors, her parents are entrepreneurs, and she understands the work that it takes to do that. And she wants to start a family and all this stuff. And she's like, I've thought about doing my own thing, but I saw what it was for my parents and how hard that entrepreneur is. And she's like, I'm happy here because I get to do all that, the entrepreneur stuff, without the associated risk. I work 40 hours and I have unlimited financial upside because there's profit sharing, right? And that is the better model for people that are just wanting to quit a job and go all in on their own practice, that they just want to stay solo. If you just want to simply stay solo, more often than not, you're better off just joining another cash practice that's already established and taking on more of a leadership role with profit sharing and equity. However, I will state that if you want to truly grow a real business and scale, 100% start your own practice.
Yeah.
But I want to make it very clear that solo and this lifestyle business, there's nothing lifestyle about it. And if you're going to start your own thing, just the only way I'd recommend that is if you truly want to grow and scale and do a real business. I used to tell people you can start your own thing, if there was another opportunity, like there just wasn't other cash practice that would hire you, just get out of the insurance game, start your own thing, you're gonna be happier, right? But now that's not the case, and with how many cash practices are out there that are hiring and scaling now.
Right. Yeah. Going at it solo, although can be like a good source of income and it can give you more flexibility. But yeah, the idea of being a solo, that being a lifestyle business, is complete and utter bullshit. It's such a hard game and it's a worthy game to play, but you have to ask yourself, like, why are you playing it? Is it to see how many people and how many lives you can impact by playing all out and discovering who it is that you can become? And you have this internal fire within you that demands you figure out who you can become by doing the hard shit. Then entrepreneurship, for sure, it's for you. But yeah, having a solo practice, it's so volatile. Anything that happens, your livelihood is on the line. And that risk creates a lot of friction and chaos and fear that is always right around the corner. You're always worried about what's going to happen next month. You're always in this fight or flight mode because everything depends on you. And on average, like a lot of people who join our programs, like that's their only intention. They just wanted to get away from their job. They just started having kids. They want to be able to be home with them, which makes a ton of sense. But then they realize, like, once they find success, once they have a full schedule and they're solo, about 6 months of that, they start to ask themselves, can I really do this for the next 5 to 10 years? Can I really work this hard? Can I stay in this perpetual state of anxiety and fear long term? And then they start to realize that it's actually like way easier to build a team than it is to continue to wear all of the hats inside your business. And it just gets damn lonely. You need someone around you who believes in your vision as much as you do to give us some sense of like peace and camaraderie that through like all the hard things that are absolutely necessary. So totally agree. I think like people really need to understand like what is it that I'm risking. Now, on the other side of that coin, like I said, like I think it's a waste of human potential to not try to become everything that you were meant to be. That we're designed to be able to accomplish incredible things, so much more than any of us actually think and believe that we actually can. And I think it's a waste of human potential to not unlock all that we're capable of. And so I think that if that's something that excites you, you should earlier on in your career go all in on trying to do that. But you have to be aware of what that actually means. And if you're only doing it because you only see the upside, but you're not weighing that and equally excited about the downside and the trials that you're going to go through and how hard that's going to be, if that hard stuff doesn't excite you, then entrepreneurship isn't worth it for sure. It'll crush you, break you to your knees, it'll damage your relationships. If you're not willing to go through the most challenging thing you've ever done in your life in order to get to the point that you're excited about, not worth it. I know a lot of people that are way happier, that have way more fulfilling lives that are just working for someone else. I don't think it's any less or more noble to join someone else's team. I know we make entrepreneurship sound cool and sexy, but what's really cool and sexy is being comfortable in your own life by, giving back to other people, by helping serve another person's mission where you're able to help way more people because you're a part of a team,
Yeah, you're spot on. You're able to make a bigger impact by joining a team than staying solo.
Right.
However, if you want to start your own thing and scale a team, then that's going to be more fulfilling. Totally. But that's not for everybody, is the big thing. And there's just a lot of, I gave the example of the revenue generation, like what somebody would make seeing, 20 patients at $200 an hour. Yeah. The thing is, you don't have benefits. You don't have health insurance benefits. You have to pay for that, right? So you have all that. You don't have PTO. You don't have vacation days, and by any stretch, you don't get weekends, more or less, And so that's something to consider too. Is I just think there's a big, and again, it's not anybody's fault. It's just they don't understand the financial impact and they just think that I can take the whole $200 to myself. It's not.
Until you realize it's like, I got to invest to acquire more clients. In order to overcome all of these like constant headaches that I have, I'm going to have to invest in learning on how to overcome these things. I'm going to have to invest in personal development so that I can run my own business, but also be a good partner and a good parent to my kids so I can leave work at home. Like there's all these things that you have to invest in yourself to grow. And I think a lot of people are starting their businesses because their lives are a complete mess and they think it's going to be easier, not realizing that our businesses, and the more you're in business, the more you realize how true this is. Otherwise, it just sounds kind of like a cliche, but like our business is and always will be a reflection of ourselves. And if we are a mess, if our lives are a mess, your business is going to be a mess and your life is always going to get harder before it gets easier in entrepreneurship. Always. And if you can't be excited about that, or at least accept that and be willing to, like in my entire first couple of years, I'm wondering if you had something like this. I think this was a Carnegie quote that I got. It was, and I said this to myself in the mirror every single day when I was completely broke and trying to make things work. I said in the mirror, whenever things were difficult, was no matter how hard it is or how hard it gets, I'm going to make it. And that's the line I said to myself over and over and over again to get through those hard times. Did you ever have something like that to help you kind of carry through the crap that you got to get through?
Yeah, it's more so just like you said, being an entrepreneur and starting your business is one of the best personal journeys that somebody can go on. And that's the thing. It's I just want to also develop as a person. I know that going through these hard times is what's going to help me develop as a person and be a better person. And it's going to be a stronger business by getting to the other side of this thing. Yep. And if it was easy, everybody would do it. And I'm great. I'm actually glad this hard stuff is popping up because my competitors also have to go through this and I'm going to get through it. And this is going to be a barrier or roadblock for some of them. So I just need to keep pushing through this because these barriers are going to stop other people, which is going to make me more successful down the road too. I just need to get through this. Right. Person. So that's how I looked at it, is looking at troubles and trials and hard times as actually a positive, because when you get through them and you look back on them, that's exactly what they are. They were something that helped you propel you further and become a better person and also make your business more robust and stronger and more profitable and healthier because of it.
Right. So I think it almost sounds like whether or not you should start a practice comes down to vision. Like, what is it that you truly not just want in life, not just like your salary, not just like your time, but who is it that you truly want to be? What are the skill sets that you want to have? What are the things that you want people to think of when they think of your name? What kind of lifestyle do you actually want to have? And then reverse engineering that of like, okay, what are all of the things that I'm going to have to, like, what are all the false beliefs and habits that I know are going to stand in the way of creating that life? What are the skills that I have to develop in order to make that life possible? How many people am I going to have to hire in order to create the kind of time, freedom, and space for me? How am I going to create that kind of security for my life? And then when you look at that list and you basically create this mountain that you're going to have to climb between where you are and where you want to be, ask yourself, is all of that worth it? Are you willing to fight for that? And how long are you willing to climb that mountain knowing that it's going to take way longer than you think it is?
And not knowing if you might actually even get there.
Right. Most people fail. You're going to fail so many times. I had like 6 different businesses. All of them failed. I was broke for so long. And most like cash physical therapists, they get to like the $15K a month mark and then they just get stuck there for like years. And then they start to ask themselves, well, is this really worth it for my family? You know? And it's like, if you don't have that big vision, it's going to be really, really hard to get through all of the hard stuff because you're not going to know why you're doing it anymore. Because you're going to realize that you did it for money. And there's way easier ways to make a lot of money that are way less stressful, that are still very fulfilling and rewarding, that allow you to go home at the end of the day proud of what it is that you've done and be present with your family. Can't tell you how many times like I almost quit because I didn't have absolute clarity in those moments of the life that I was building for myself. And I was focused so much on just like revenue goals and income goals. And whenever I was just solely focused on that, it was really easy for me to think like, my God, there's so much easier ways for me to be able to make that money. Like I could go do high ticket closing and make $1 million a year. Like no problem. I'm great at sales. I can sell anything. I could go make way more money doing a lot of other things. But what always tied me back, what always kept me in the game was realizing it's like, that's not who I am at my core. I'm a builder and I am horrible at being told what to do, even when it's like good advice. If someone tells me, especially like if they have the wrong tone, even if it's good for me, I'm going to do the exact opposite because that's who I am. I am an entrepreneur. And if that's not you, then maybe it makes more sense to go be an intrapreneur on someone else's team because you're going to have all the upside, all the excitement of getting to build stuff, but you're not going to have any of the like risk and the stress that comes with it.
Yeah. And I think that's for a lot of people, that's the right play. And then there's going to be other people that do need to start their own thing. And the thing is only you can answer that for yourself.
Right. So on the other side of this coin, at the live event, how are you doing on time?
I got to get another 10 minutes.
Okay. So at the live event, we had one of our clients who came up to us and he was really on the fence of joining our mastermind program. And the battle he was having internally was, he started this practice 3-4 months ago. He, got to 10K a month, but then he got an offer to go be a partner at an established in-network clinic that was doing over $1 million a year. And he couldn't decide whether he should go and join this other company where it wasn't clear yet whether he was going to get equity or if it was going to be a rev share model, which is obviously like really important. But like he didn't know how to make the decision. I know what I said, but I'm curious, like you had the same conversation with the same person, right?
Yeah. Yep.
What was your advice?
Yeah. So I said it comes down to what your goals are. I told him like, if you just want to stay solo, it maybe makes more sense to do the profit sharing and do the equity. Really exactly what I've been echoing on this podcast is what I told him on it. But I'm like, if you truly want to grow, because he wanted to grow and scale a practice. And like, if you truly want to grow and scale a practice and grow a team, do it on your own. You've got to turn the ship around. This is an insurance-based clinic. You've got to turn the ship around, get everybody on board with cash. There's going to be a lot of trouble or a lot of struggles with that as well. And it's like, also, are they going to ask you to buy into this practice? And that changes things too, obviously, right? He could take that capital and just go on his own thing. And that might make more sense, maybe not. But also, if you buy into that equity and that you're able to sell that practice for a higher multiple because it's a well-run machine, you go to sell that, it's going to definitely be worth more than if you say it's a solo, because that's not a solo practice. That's the thing too about if you only want to do your own thing and be a solopreneur, your business, and I use that in quotations, is not worth anything because it's not a real business. If you take yourself out of that business fails, nobody's going to buy that business, right? And so that's the thing I told him too too is like, if you just want to stay solo, you're not really truly building an asset. If you did find this other practice that has team and they go to sell, you will have equity at that sell too. So it really comes down to somebody's goals. And his goal was that he wanted to grow and scale his practice. So I encouraged him to do his own thing then. Yes, he wants to be solo, better off joining practice.
I took a different angle with it where I was like, it started with like, well, what like do you really, really want? And it came down to like, he wants time and like financial freedom, but like this job, his brother was telling him, it's like, you're crazy. Like, why wouldn't you take that? Blah, blah, blah. But it's like, I asked him, it's like, well, does your brother have a life that you want? He's like, definitely not. It's like, then why the hell would you take advice from him? Okay. Absolutely do not do that. And it sounded like he was making the decision really out of fear because he didn't know if he had what it took. And he said that, he's planning on having kids in the next year. He wants to be able to be there for them, all that stuff. And I asked him, it's like, okay, well, imagine your kid was in this scenario. They started a practice because that was their dream. And then they got offered a job, a partnership that was really just like potentially more money now, but not as much money later. Like, what would you want them to do? And he really froze on that because it was like, of course, you want your kids to follow their dreams and to do the hard thing. And then I asked him, like, I mean, it sounds like you're really good at what you do. You're well connected. Like, if you went all in on your own cash practice and it failed, do you think you could find another situation like that down the road? And he said, like, probably. And I think that's what a lot of people who are like weighing their options. And it's like, failure isn't as bad as everyone thinks it's going to be. Like, most of the opportunities you have right now, you're still going to have those. It might not be the same job. You can go find another job. And if you feel compelled and you feel it in your soul that you're meant to build something that's bigger than yourself, like, to allow fear to give that up, I think there's no greater loss than that. When you give in to that fear and you do the easier thing because in the short term, it's more comfortable. I do think it's like, yes, weigh the options of entrepreneurship. But like, if you're young, do the hard thing, if you're willing to pay the cost. Okay, there's an investment in your soul that you have to make in order to succeed. And it's not for everybody. But if you do have that calling, like, go do the hard thing. Don't take the partnership. Don't take the easy way out. Do the hard thing. And you're always going to be glad that you did. And especially when you're true to yourself and you do the hard thing, the skills that you develop and the version of yourself that you become through doing that, it changes absolutely everything. And it's going to create so many opportunities for you if you do eventually decide that, hey, maybe this isn't for me. I'm going to go do something else.
And realize too that you are most likely going to have to more or less in other ways trade in 2 or 3 years of your life starting practice too. But there's so much massive upside to it, right? Like, I think I started my practice when I was 25, almost 26. And, it was until 28, 29 until I really got my life back. And during that time, I had to see but it's also tough at the same time, seeing friends get married, friends having kids. I'm here with my life on pause. That's something that I was willing to trade, but it didn't make it any easier. And so you just kind of see life pass you by a little bit for those first couple of years and just know that's something that's going to have to happen, but it will be worth it if you truly have a grand goal and want a grand life for yourself too. Like, I'm so glad I did it, but in the moment it is tough.
Right. So I think all this to summarize, there's no greater pursuit than becoming an entrepreneur and trying to make the world a better place and earning a better life for yourself, making hundreds of other people's lives better first. No nobler pursuit in the world than that. But it's not for everyone. And there's also like really good ways to live your life that are also just as noble as working for someone else and being a more present parent or partner and doing that. That's what the vast majority of the world does. And you can absolutely still work on yourself and become the best version of yourself through doing that. Okay. So I think the main thing that we have to understand is that entrepreneurship is war every day, and it sucks more often than it doesn't. I think an Olympian said it's like the rule of thirds. Like, 1/3 of the time, it's absolute hell. 1/3 of the time, you're completely numb and you don't feel anything. And only 1/3 of the time are things actually fun. And so we have to accept that, and you have to be excited about that. And you have to accept that it's like, you're not just going to war against the market and your competitors. In fact, your competitors don't matter. You're going to war against yourself every single day because it's a constant pursuit of being uncomfortable. That's what entrepreneurship is. That's how we grow. That's how you build something that's truly great. And if you're not willing to do that, go work in a job for a while. build up a blanket and a safety net of your own finances, and then maybe try entrepreneurship down the road when it's less risky. But understand what you're choosing. And if you decide that that's what you want, then you have to burn all your boats. You have to kill any idea of a plan B, and you have to go all in on doing that. Because if you take that job, if you take that partnership, you're going to live the rest of your life asking yourself, like, what if I didn't do that? What if I did bet on myself?
100%.
Any other words of wisdom, Ben?
No, it's just what are your goals and what vehicle will get you there?
Right on. Cool. Thanks for listening, everybody. Don't forget to subscribe to the Cash Physical Therapy Headquarters podcast. And if you got value out of this video, give us some love in the comments below. And if you have a topic that you're struggling with inside of your practice, let us know. We'd be more than happy to make an episode purely around whatever issues you're dealing with inside of your practice, or even have you as a guest on the podcast so Ben and I can personally help you work through any issues that you're dealing with.